Homeowners and renters who lost their homes in the Eaton Fire in the Los Angeles area, plus family members who have lost loved ones, are now suing the electric company Southern California Edison. The family of 59-year-old Evelyn McClendon says Edison failed to turn off utilities despite clear warnings about extremely dangerous fire conditions, leading to catastrophic consequences. The Eaton Fire has killed at least 16 people and has damaged or destroyed more than 7,000 structures. Attorney Ben Crump and McClendon's brother Zaire Calvin join us right now. I'm glad to have both of you here. Zaire, apologies for the loss of your loved one, and so our condolences certainly go out to you and the family as well. Ben, we'll start with you. Lay out to us the foundation of this case, or this lawsuit.
Certainly, Roland. It's just tragic beyond words what happened to the city of Altadena, a very prideful Black community. Zaire can talk more about it than I can, but in less than an hour, 200 acres burnt down to the ground of Black people having worked for these homes with their blood, sweat, and tears to be able to give it to their children and have generational wealth gone in a matter of minutes. And tragically, worse than the property damage is the loss of life. Zaire lost his sister, Evelyn McClendon, a school bus driver, salt of the earth, a Black angel. And she literally, Roland, died there in her house with, like so many others, with nobody coming to their rescue. And there was a failure to warn because on January 3rd, Con Edison Energy Company had got the warning. They were told directly that de-energize the power. It is a potential catastrophic occurrence about to happen. You had 100-mile winds. And so they predicted that they should turn off the power. They didn't. That was on January 3rd. She died on January 7th. They gave no warnings to the people in Altadena, that proud Black community. And really, at the crux of the matter, they had 50 other faults telling them in that 4-day period to turn off the power. Because had they turned off the power, people would have said, what's going on? People would have left and they would have been saved. The first time they got notice that they were in jeopardy was when the transmitters blew up and the fire started. And that's when they turned off the energy. So that's why we're suing Con Edison for the wrongful death of Evelyn McClendon. And we all should say her name and all those other Black people, because there's a tendency, Roland, in these tragedies that people will focus in on the Palisades and the more affluent communities, and they often forget the Black communities.
Zaire, do you live there in the Los Angeles area?
Yes, I grew up, my whole family, my whole life lived in Altadena. My family's hearts are shattered as we're still trying to wrap our minds around the loss of my sister. This is absolutely a travesty. We lost 2 family properties. That's just my family. All my cousins are displaced. Hundreds of Altadena's multi-generational African American brothers and sisters and cousins and friends have all lost their homes to this devastation in our community caused by this fire and caused by Edison.
What Ben described, has that been the normal procedure when there have been dry conditions in terms of how power is turned off and residents are notified?
Yes, I mean, they're supposed to protect. I mean, you think that the utility company is going to protect the citizens, and the actual people are more important than leaving the electricity or collecting $1 it would make more sense to take off and turn it off and protect your people that are living there in the community. So I don't understand why they wouldn't turn it off. And we were outside. I was having a training because we do training I have a program called Extreme Athletics. We were literally training that night when we're running up and down the hill. We see the fire ignite and start. And then now later, I come to find out there's a video of where it started. And it's so disheartening. And if you just can understand all of your friends, this is the hardest part. All of your friends in one community, all of your friends, your family, your cousin who's been there for 30, 40, 50 years, who've worked a lifetime to build this type of generational wealth, which is literally through housing, because we don't do stocks and bonds. I'm just learning that myself. And that's the only thing that was passed on. And to see that happen and it be gone in a flash, and my sister literally found my sister, to find her remains because of this is it's mind-blowing and it's hurtful, and we can't even wrap our minds around it as a family.
Ben, you walked us through. I mean, first of all, it's devastating to listen to what Zaire just laid out there. You walked us through these warnings and these different notifications, and so who did those come from? Did that come from the city, the county, the state?
Yeah, it was the state officials. You see, Roland, these wildfires, as we all know, is nothing new to California. They actually have enacted legislation to say what the energy companies must do. It is enumerated in our lawsuit that they fell for California codes that the legislature passed after the Malibu fires were PG&E, where so many people lost their lives in their homes. So they were on notice. They were told that it could happen. You need to de-energize the power. And so that is why people are so upset. Why didn't the California Edison Power Company cut off the power? It would have been as simple, we believe, as hitting a switch. And they made whatever decision. We don't know if it was profit over safety, but they made a decision that they were not going to turn off that power. And unlike the Palisades, Altadena situation is different because it can be completely tracked back to the transmitter and the power lines. I mean, they have video, as Zaire says, showing how that fire started, and it went like that. In less than 1 hour, Roland Martin, 200 acres of houses. And if you can imagine a populated area like Los Angeles, 200 acres, how many houses are in those 200 acres? How many lives are affected? So Zaire, I mean, he has talked about the Black people in that community, how they loved on one another. And my concern, Roland Martin, is that, you know, others get more attention. They had the statistics that say, in these tragedies, white families get on average $126,000 from relief aid. Black people only get $36,000. And so you lost your home, your cars, everything. We got to make them whole. We cannot let them sweep this under the rug and treat Altadena like second-class citizens. We will rebuild this Black community.
There are a lot of, obviously, you have to contend with being your sister. There are a lot of folks, like you said, who've lost everything. And so how are others coming to your aid? Are you getting the assistance that you need? Just give us a sense of all of that, Zaire.
So as a community, the community is strong, and that's the blessing part of all of this. Everyone is kind of sticking together. But to give you, and it's so sad to say, when you're talking to your cousins and your neighbors and all your friends, and we all are on group chats, every race, every creed, every kind, everybody's talking together, helping each other while everyone has lost everything. So everyone who's trying to help each other the most are all the same people who've lost everything. And that's the part that people don't understand. They're the ones doing the work. They're the ones running around looking up services, sending out text and seeing what help can be out there. They're the ones, all the ones who've lost everything are the ones doing the work, who are literally, as a community, literally bonding together to try to bring resources to each other. I just had a mom, Myra, she won't mind me saying her name, I'm talking about before I just got on, who's calling me, who literally was like, Z, what do I do? Everything's gone. She lived right up the street. I coached her son. She's like, everything's gone. And now I'm just trying to figure out what to do, how to step, how to move. So it's literally us just passing resources to each other to build our community back. And I don't want anybody to have to endure this type of pain as a community. I don't want anybody's community, I don't care what race you are, especially Black, because we've been through enough, to have to endure this kind of pain and frustration and just everything that's going on.
Well, there's no amount of money that can be given to bring a loved one back, but certainly we hope answers are received by you and the other families as to what happened here with this devastating fire. Zaire Calvin, we appreciate you joining us. Attorney Ben Crump, we appreciate you joining us as well. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Roland.
You know, when you look at the devastation in Los Angeles, and there were a lot of people in the first few days who kept harping on celebrities and not understanding that whether you're a celebrity or not, when you lose everything, I mean, this is not some possession that's been stolen out of your car and then you're going back to your home or whatever. This is everything. It's clothes, it's memory, it's jewelry, it's all of your possessions, and people are left with nothing. The equity they had was in their homes. That's all you had, and all of that is gone. You had insurance companies that pulled out of the state. No one knows how many of these homes were not insured. And people, I mean, and you listen to, and then of course you compound that with the folks who died, 16, and there are people, many that are still missing. And so I think a lot of these people who are out here, who are commenting and saying all sorts of stuff and trying to place blame, including the twice impeached, criminally convicted felon in chief Donald Trump, folk need to understand and have some sense of compassion and empathy for this type of devastation.
Absolutely. And, condolences to the young man that was just on and all the folks who have lost their loved ones and their homes. And I think this speaks to this broader callousness that is at work in this country. And we've seen it happen with other tragedies. We saw what happened with the hurricanes in Texas. We saw what happened with Katrina in New Orleans. I mean, you go down the list. And when you think about the devastation that is caused to Black communities by these kinds of losses, we can't simply say, well, that's what you have insurance for, because as you noted, a lot of people were in that period where they were going to re-up their insurance, renew their insurance. If some people didn't pay by January 7th, they are not covered. So there are quite a few people who will not be able to recoup whatever they lost. And as you noted, most people's wealth was tied up in their homes. So if people had done anything like refinancing and had mortgages to pay, the most that they can hope for is to pause that mortgage for a year. But whether they're able to rebuild their homes or not, they're still going to have to pay back those banks. So we are talking about generations of consequences from this natural disaster. And as you noted, unfortunately, people are using this for political fodder. I mean, you have people who are already figuring out how they can be wealthy. I mean, people who are already prospecting and essentially buying property or attempting to buy property from these beleaguered homeowners for cents on the dollar because they're thinking about what it's going to be like when it comes back. And we saw similar things happen in New Orleans after Katrina and other things. I think what always ends up happening in these cases is the people who are least able to cope with this loss are summarily forgotten. And we have to remember there are a lot of Black folks in this city, in this particular devastation, who will not be back in Altadena, who will not be able to rebuild their homes, who will not be able to recoup the financial loss from this moment, and what that's going to look like for generations to come in a state that has seen the Black wealth go down exponentially as the cost of housing has risen. It's going to be far more difficult for Black communities to rebuild than I think most people are appreciating right now.
Reese.
Yeah, I think that it's just so horrific and tragic. I think you make such a good point about the equity. There was decades of equity in many of these homes that people were probably being responsible by not tapping into with refinancing and being more cash rich, but, having higher mortgages that now they will not be able to access because, insurance doesn't cover equity. It covers rebuilding if you're lucky enough to be insured. But I think that, it's definitely a tale of the way the racial lens that is applied to these tragedies, to the extent that Blackness has been given an outsized amount of attention in this tragedy has been to cast aspersions on Mayor Karen Bass, to accuse quote unquote DEI of being something that has contributed to these fires, which is absurd. And not enough attention has been on the community of Altadena and the working people throughout all of the fires that have been impacted of different races. I mean, I covered Altadena on my show on Saturday, but certainly there should be a lot more attention on this. But I will say I am heartened by the grassroots. I'm glad that we still have that, the grassroots galvanization that we've seen on social media and in person that has surrounded this community. And I hope that kind of support and empathy sustains, even if we cannot necessarily break through on the so-called mainstream media lens with that kind of focus.
Greg.
I add my sympathy, prayers. Listening to Zaire was heartbroken. It's just heartbreaking. I can't imagine finding my sister's remains. Again, this community, which existed initially, African people moving out there in the 1930s and 40s, because redlining practices weren't there. And so now you have a community that has been devastated, like say thousands of acres, thousands of people displaced. I was telling my students today, when you think about Pasadena and Altadena is where Jack Roosevelt Robinson's mother moved them out of Cairo, Georgia, to the West Coast. And so Jackie Robinson spent his early childhood there on Pepper Street, and went to John Muir High School. And I was reading that one of the coaches at Muir High School concerned because all of his students suffering and worried about his own house. And I've got a couple of students, the Ben sisters, one's in school at Howard now, and her big sister graduated a few years ago, both of them in African American Studies department, and she hasn't come back to school yet. And I was talking with the students who were letting me know that, they are one of the many families that have GoFundMe set up and have been receiving donations. And I'm raising that finally for this point, as we just heard, the whole idea that our communities are resilient, even in the middle of this incredible tragedy, where everything, including for some lives, have been lost. The rebuild already being marshaled, not just the people there in Altadena, not just the people in the wake of the Eaton Fire and everywhere else, but from around the country and around the world, people who I've seen a spreadsheet from the GoFundMe's just of black families. And of course, this fire knows no color. I'm not saying that, but in terms of what Attorney Crump is raising here, we're going to help. We're going to help each other. And that help is pouring in from all over the place. And therein lies the hope.
Indeed. And so we will continue to bring you these stories and also keep you up to date on what is happening with the resources that are being raised by so many of these families.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. And right now we're accepting investors in our $17 million round to revolutionize the future of social media. Today, for just $399, you can own 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. While the big platforms have grown too massive and disconnected from their users, Fanbase is building a platform where creators and users truly come first. We've already raised $4.8 million from everyday investors who believe in this vision, and now you can join them. This is your chance to invest in a social media tech company with over 1 million users that is disrupting media by allowing anyone to reach all of their following and monetize their content from day one. The market is changing, big platforms are failing to serve their users, and Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now. Invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the future of social media.